When I think about community, like a really good community, what I think about is that expression, how it takes a village to raise a child, because I just think that that's so wonderful, and I'm sure that there are, people in this world, who still live like that. I live in the city, so I don't really know, my neighbors all that well, but I just think that it's such a beautiful image, if you could imagine, what it would be like if all your neighbors were friends with you, you know what I mean? And like everyone is taking care of each other. So then, like, if you go away or something, then maybe your neighbor is going to look out the window and like just check on your kids, like, what's Tommy doing? Is he okay? Or something like that. And, I love to think about like how safe I would feel. Do you know what I mean? If all of my neighbors were like taking care of me like that. Because, well, I stopped watching TV recently, because I don't know, it was just like everything bad, you know what I mean? Like there was like murder, and then terror, and then somebody would say something like just really weird and scary, you know what I mean? Like let's build a wall between here and Mexico or something like that, and it's just like it's just so weird and crazy, and well, and I think, like, I don't know if maybe it makes it a little bit hard sometimes, when you have all of this fear, to like meet people, because sort of, you see somebody, but then it's like you're not sure whether or not you should introduce yourself, because it's like, are you friend or foe? You know what I mean? And well, and also, I feel like it makes me feel a little bit powerless and just like a little bit isolated too, because the way our system is, it makes me feel like I should be able to do something if things are going wrong in the world, that I should be able to do something to make it better. But like, I don't know, even who I would call or like, who I would write to try to make anything really better, so it makes me feel a little bit isolated. And also, forget trying to make things better, it's hard to even make sure you're not hurting anybody. Because, what really bothers me is, like, sometimes I'll go shopping, and I'll buy, I don't know, a blouse or something like that, and I'd like to think that the person who made my blouse was working in like very good conditions, you know what I mean, with like really good labor laws, where they make enough money to be able to feed their family and everything. But I hear all the time now about these sweatshops, with people sleeping on the floor, like on dirt floors and everything. And it bothers me so much, to think about, that I could, just by buying a blouse, somehow be contributing to somebody else's suffering like this. You know what I mean? And it just really makes me feel worried and sort of powerless to do anything. Because also, if you think about the world as being a big community, we're not really doing too right by our neighbors, in that case. But I think what happens is sometimes when we generalize about people, like if we think of the people who like are making the blouse as being the workers, and then like people like me who buy it are consumers, it makes me think about, if you see like a chart and you see people, and it's like stick figure, stick figure, stick figure, stick figure, you know what I mean? Or if it's men and women, then like the man is the stick, and the woman is the triangle with the ball on top, and so you've got workers, stick triangle, stick triangle, stick triangle, But I think when we think about people like that and sort of generalize and standardize things, maybe it makes us kind of somehow okay with people suffering in a way where we wouldn't normally be, because we're not sort of thinking about them as being whole persons, Whereas if you know somebody's name and you know what their favorite song is, and you've been to the movies together or something like that, then you're much more likely to to take care of them and to make sure that they're okay,
So when you talk about how you want to create community and build a community, I am already distrustful. I am already, because I am from the Soviet Union, when it was the Soviet Union. And this is a wonderful example of how you cannot force people to be in a community together. If you want to enforce this kind of equality, you end up with one person on the top sort of forcing everyone to get together, and this can be very unpleasant. But, and that's why I find it so funny, also, that that people still think that what we had in the Soviet Union was communism. We did not have communism. We did not have even really socialism. The only thing that was really socialist about Soviet Union was things like, for example, everyone having their own apartment. But other than that, no. What we had was oligarchy. We had 5 people on the top drinking champanska and eating caviar, and everyone else with nothing. And but that's why I'm so happy I was able to come out from there. I'm so grateful every day, grateful that I am an American. I was always wanting to live in a free democratic society, and I have absolutely everything I could possibly ask for. I have my lovely little house, and I have my beautiful little dress shop, with my family, and it's so beautiful, it's such bounty. I cannot imagine anyone wanting for anything more, and yet it's very interesting because some of my friends who were coming here at the same time that I did, now they are so wildly successful, really extraordinarily rich, because they are also very, very smart, very, very smart. But it's interesting to me that they are so interested in capitalism as being the thing that makes America great, to the point where they are participating in some things, like, for example, buying all of the apartments in a city, and then leaving them empty, not living in them in order to keep prices high. And it's not only Russians who are doing this, all sorts of rich people are doing this. But it always surprises me when Russians from the Soviet Union are doing these practices, because what you have when you do this is you have now only few people on the top who have all the houses, and many people difficulty finding housing, and this, I'm thinking, doesn't this start to look exactly like what we were coming here to escape, because America is capitalist, but first it's a democracy in which people fairly agree, and this is the most important point. They enter into an agreement. They are not forced. They are entered into an agreement where everyone participates in a system together to make the world better for everyone. But then if someone is so rich that they can then afford to pay a politician for a vote, then what you have again is you have just a few people on the top, very powerful, and everyone else without power. And I'm telling you, this is Soviet. This is not American, this is Soviet. And I'll tell you right now, I said no to Soviet oligarchy over there, say again no to it here. No oligarchy. We have to have democracy. And the thing that scares me so much, the thing that frightens me the most, is that now, because we are seeing this disparity, between the rich and the poor, people are calling for communism to fix the problem. And I am saying, no, this is not what you want. Trust me, you cannot have communism. You cannot have enforced equality, because you will end up again with oligarchy. You will end up with totalitarian regime. The only thing that we can do is agree to participate in the democratic process, which means that if you are so rich, you can afford to buy a politician or buy the government, that you agree not to do it, because you know that it breaks the system. And otherwise, you will end up with totalitarian regime. And the thing that we know about totalitarian regimes from our human history is that they tend to end badly. not only for the people on the bottom, but for the people on the top also. Now, I am a conservative Republican Christian man, and I will have you know that I do not readily disclose this information to just anyone. Usually, I keep that to myself, and that is because there are people in this country and all over the world who are willing to enter into a physical confrontation with me, even though they do not know me, even though they have never met me, based on this fact. Because of people that they see on television who call themselves conservative Republicans and Christians, who are somehow preaching inequality and violence, people get the idea that I am somehow all right with violence because I am a conservative Republican and a Christian. Now, this is absurd. I am a Christian man. Love thy neighbor as thyself is what it says in the Bible. That's what they're preaching to me when I go to church on Sunday, not violence. And I'll tell you something else. My neighbors are all kinds of people. I travel all over the world for business, and my neighbors are all kinds of people. They're Muslims and Jews and Europeans, Africans, Chinese, all kinds of people, and they are my neighbors. I travel all the time for business. I see them all the time, and that means that my religion requires me to love them, and not only to love them, but as myself, which means that I have to understand that they are like me, that they are connected to me, and that harming them is harming myself. So no, I'm not a violent man. Now, I am a conservative Republican. So what does this mean? Well, first of all, as a Republican, it means that I believe in democracy, most particularly American democracy, this beautiful system of ours that was passed down to us from the ancient Greeks, designed to balance itself by all parties playing their side. Now, my side is that I want to shrink the federal government and make more individual initiatives for private business owners like myself. That's my interest. But as a person who believes in democracy, I understand that you need both sides in order for the system to function. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if you take, I am, as a private business owner, I'm responsible for a little over 3,000 employees. Now, if you take the politics of any one of my employees, it's probably very different than mine. He's interested in having a fair minimum wage. He needs Social Security. He needs a good education for his children. Do you know what I mean? But I have to understand that his interests are my interests, because my company is only as strong as its weakest member. And so that's why I'm so grateful that we have this beautiful system, which the richest man and the poorest man have an equal vote, so that we can work together to make sure that everybody gets what they need. Now, parallel to that, you have capitalism. Now, I am a capitalist. Don't get me wrong. I am the biggest capitalist you ever saw. I made a lot of money thanks to capitalism. But but the thing is that capitalism also affords me another opportunity. Capitalism affords me the opportunity to take that money that I made with my business and to build something beautiful, like a concert hall or a museum or a park or a school, and give it back to the public for all to enjoy. Some of the most beautiful works of art in the world were gifts from the private sector into the public sector. And there's so much pride and joy that can be taken in that. There's so much pleasure that can be derived from giving back. So much more, I think, than keeping all of my money that I made for myself. What joy could there be in that? What good is money on its own? Money is not for loving. People are for loving. God is for loving. Nature is for loving.
Money is to use to help those you love be happy. Now, when I think about community and why it breaks down, the thing that I think is most important to think about first is, what is our image of human beings? Do you know what I mean? For example, if you work all day, if I work all day at my job, to make a lot of money in order to buy all sorts of things, and if I think of myself as being a consumer, and that my only fulfillment comes from external things, then do you hear in that my image of myself is that I'm sort of an empty void? Do you know what I mean? And that all I can do is get things from the outside to fill this void, and yet I'm thinking of myself as being perpetually empty. Do you know what I mean? And yet, if we look at all the greatest works of art and higher learning in human history, of poetry and philosophy and science and maths, then what we see is that a human being is not an empty void. Quite the contrary. The human imagination is capable of such magnificent things. Human consciousness can expand to encompass such marvelous vistas, And then, if I take myself out into nature, and I see, like, maybe a beautiful lake, and flowers and trees and wonderful mountain ranges, then being there, suddenly I feel myself to be a part of this grace and largesse of the natural world. And my imagination, right open, yes, and all of a sudden it's so thrilling just to think my thoughts, and in that state, I am not merely content to be here in this moment now. No, I'm ecstatic. I'm bloody thrilled to be here now, right? And all I want to do is be here with you and chat and have wonderful, fulfilling conversations in which we're fascinated by our exchange of ideas, and we can sit and have these chats for hours over a tea or a whiskey, if you like, whichever, but I'm so happy to be here in this moment together. And yet, on the other hand, if I'm constantly bombarded by fears, either through the media or what have you, then perhaps I'm less likely to relax into my own mind and enjoy my own imagination, because I become so afraid of the scary images that my imagination might show me, that then again I'm more susceptible to being distracted and taken out of myself and, putting my attention on things that are really boring, like commercials and things like that, And yet, it's so important that we remember the marvelous tool that is the human imagination when it's harnessed. Do you know what I mean? And that's why, Einstein said, that imagination is more important than knowledge. And that's why Shakespeare said, thinking makes it so. Do you know what I mean? Because if we're going to make a better world, then first we have to imagine it, right? And so that's what I think we should do right now. Let's do a little exercise together. Are you ready? Okay, so what we're going to do is imagine something really, really beautiful that we really want, and we're going to imagine a world as though it's happened, right? And what we have to make sure we do is not do that habitual thing that we always do, which is say why it's impossible, right? We're not going to do that. No, instead, we're going to entertain the notion as though it were so. Are you ready? Okay, so what would be nice? Why don't we imagine a world in which we can beat our swords into plowshares, as it were? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take all the money and energy that we're putting into armaments, or the military-industrial complex, if you will. We're going to take all of that and we're going to put it into environmental technologies that help the earth to heal itself. How about that? Very good idea. Yeah, I think. Okay. Yes. So we've done that now. So we've done it. Okay, we've done it. Here we are. So now, what do we see? Well, I've got nothing to fear from my neighbor across the sea over here, because I'm not doing any strife to make that person angry, so I don't have to fear any retaliation, so I'm okay over there. And then over here, I don't have to be afraid of anything like climate change or global warming, because all of our best resources are going into healing that, and all of the greatest minds of humankind are working on it, and we know the human mind is capable of such wonders, so there's every reason to feel like everything is going to be okay. Wonderful. Feels pretty good, right? So then, imagine now that I go out my door. I go out my door and there's a person there walking, right? And because of this wonderful state of the world, I find it so much more likely that this person is my friend. And so I'm that much more likely to put up my hand and say, hello, how are you today? And this is the moment when community starts.